Question says, study source A. How useful is source A to an historian studying Scottish emigration from the Highlands in the 18th and 19th centuries? Okay. And what you can see there is a painting of some rather sad-looking figures, and they are standing at a dock somewhere. And you're actually, as you look at that painting, as it says in the little blurb at the top, you're almost the perspective of the emigrants. You are on the ship, if you like, leaving the port. And so what do we know about this painting? Well, it says it's by a Scottish artist. Well, that will probably be interesting to us, won't it? So I'm just going to circle that. It's called The Last of the Clan. And we know the clan refers to Highlands, don't we? Painted in 1865. The painting focuses on people who are left behind, who are too old or young to leave as the Scots emigrate, and that means leave, doesn't it, to foreign countries during the time of the Highland clearances. The viewer's vantage point is the deck of the departing ship, looking at the last images of an emigrating Scot might see of his homeland as he left. Okay? So you're looking at this painting as if you are on that ship pulling away from the port, and you're looking at the people you left behind. So the first thing is just to say, in a how useful question, well, what is it telling you, in this case, about Scottish emigration? Well, when I look at that picture, what it tells me is that it was a rather sad thing to happen, that people are left behind, and that maybe families are broken up as a result. So this is a fairly gloomy image, isn't it? Okay, that's to me, it's telling me that this emigration was a sad thing, a gloomy thing. People were split up. Okay, you'll get marks for being able to understand the source in that respect, which is good. But it's asking you how useful it is. So you need to consider, well, who wrote it, don't you? Or in this case, who drew it? You need to look at the provenance. Okay, so we know this was a Scot that painted it, and this was a Scottish person painting about what is effectively a Scottish tragedy. So we might assume, though we don't know, but we can assume that he would have sympathy with the Scots that he's painting. So he's likely to be trying to show sympathy. So it's useful in the sense that it's a Scottish view, but obviously in that sense it's a subjective view, isn't it, really? Because it's just talking about this. You know, it's a Scot talking about the sadness that's happened perhaps to his fellow countrymen, you might argue. Okay? It was painted around the time that this was going on, perhaps towards the end of this period. So it's reflecting things he might have seen or understood. Okay? So that's fair enough. But what's interesting, of course, is it says here he's a painter, and there's a little bit of extra information here which is given to us, which is said he was a popular artist and he lived in London. And I would say it's a good chance he hadn't actually, we don't know, did he actually see this occurring? Okay, because these people we know left from Liverpool, for example. What is his actual experience of this? He was a Scot living in London painting this. And what's interesting is it tells us that these women are rather fashionably dressed for the time. So possibly it's not going to be 100% accurate, because what's the reason he's painting? His reason he's painting is because he wants to sell that painting, doesn't he? So he might not paint it as badly, perhaps as it would be really, because he wants someone to hang this on a wall, and so maybe he's not actually telling the full extent of how bad it is. In other words, you might ask, is it worse? Because actually he wants to sell the painting. So I think that's worth pointing out. You could think about those things in terms of the provenance. Now, in terms of the content, well, I suppose what we need to look at is this true? Did it go on? And yes, of course, we know it's useful in the fact that it is true. People were forced off their land for sheep. living in these small highland farming communities was not profitable for the people who own the land, and so they were pushed off. We also know that many of them did leave for places like America to start a new life, or the Empire. So we know that that is true, and they would have left from places like Liverpool. So it's telling us something, that it's giving us an idea of what it was like for those people, and we know they left. Okay. Now, overall, how useful is it? Well, when I look at this picture, it's quite good for me as a historian if I'm thinking about the impact on those left behind, who are rather sad, aren't they, at this breakup, and that this was it was a difficult time. So in that sense, I think it's quite useful. But what it's not telling us is, well, you know, what was the long-term impact? What was the long-term impact? It's not telling us that, is it? And we know that the long-term impact was actually more positive. Many of these people established themselves in the America or in the Empire, and actually that was and were successful there. So that's the kind of thing I would be thinking about as I answered this question. What's it telling me? What kind of things might I think about in terms of the provenance? How can I explain what I see here using my knowledge? And overall, what makes this a useful source, but perhaps what are the limits to how useful it is? And that's what I broadly do with that question. That's how I'd think about that kind of question.